The toothbrush still had her lipstick on it when I sealed the evidence bag. Not drama. Just Revlon berry kiss smudged on bristles I'd swabbed against our daughter's cheek while she slept. The DNA kit came in a plain brown box, the kind that doesn't raise questions when the UPS guy hands it over. I'd ordered it 3 days after Marin said the words that detonated 8 years of my life. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Stop acting like you raised her. She's not even yours. We were standing in our kitchen. She'd just come back from another networking weekend in Charlotte, her 4th this year. I'd found the hotel confirmation in her email, the one she'd forwarded to herself from Cade Beaumont's account by mistake. Amateur hour? She didn't even change the subject line. Can't wait to see you again. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just asked who Cade was. That's when she said it. Cold, matter of fact. Like she'd been waiting for the right moment to pull the pin. I'm a copywriter by trade, though these days I mostly drive for rideshare apps to keep the lights on. Words are supposed to be my weapon, but in that moment, I had nothing. I just stood there holding a coffee mug with a chip in the rim, watching my wife's face for some sign she was lying, bluffing, anything. She wasn't. So I went quiet. I've learned that silence is the most terrifying response you can give someone who expects a fight. Marin kept talking, filling the void with justifications about emotional needs and growing apart, and how Cade understood her ambitions in ways I never could. Cade Beaumont, I'd learn later, was a consultant, the kind who wears expensive watches and calls himself an entrepreneur without actually making anything. He'd been her college boyfriend before I came along, back when she was still pretending to care about art history instead of Instagram metrics. I waited for the DNA results, like a man waiting for his fate to be sealed. 11 days. I drove my rideshare shifts on autopilot, smiling at passengers, making small talk about weather and traffic, while my mind ran loops around a single question. What do you do when your entire life turns out to be a lie? The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. I sat in my car in a grocery store parking lot and opened it with hands that didn't shake. That surprised me. I thought I'd be trembling, crying, something. Instead, I felt cold and clear, like someone had injected ice water directly into my veins. Probability of paternity, 0%. I read it 3 times. Scanned it with my phone, saved it to 3 different cloud services. Then I did something that would have seemed crazy to the old me, the trusting me, the idiot me. I printed 5 copies at FedEx and mailed 1 to Marin's parents. No note. Just the lab report with the highlighted conclusion. Then I went home and started packing. I didn't leave immediately. That would have been dramatic, and drama is what Marin wanted. A big scene she could spin for her friends, proof I was unstable or controlling. Instead, I became a ghost in my own house. I slept in the guest room. I documented everything. I pulled up our credit card statements and found a pattern of hotel charges that lined up perfectly with her networking trips. I cross-referenced them with Cade's LinkedIn posts. He had a habit of checking in at airport lounges, restaurants, the kind of places that scream, "Look at my lifestyle." The college reunion weekend was the smoking gun. Marin told me she was visiting her sister in Denver. Her sister posted Instagram stories from Seattle that same weekend. Meanwhile, Cade posted a photo from a hotel bar in Charlotte with the caption, "Sometimes the best business happens off the clock." I ran a reverse image search on the window reflection and matched it to the Marriott downtown, the same hotel on our credit card bill. I'm not a hacker. I'm not a private investigator. I'm just a guy who knows how to use Google and has too much time on his hands between rideshare fares. Public information is a beautiful thing when you know where to look. While I gathered evidence, I also gathered something else. Patience. The kind of cold, methodical patience that comes from understanding you're going to burn someone's life down and wanting to do it right. I started soft surveillance. Where does Cade park his vintage Porsche? Red zone, twice a week because he's too important for parking garages. Where does Marin stash her overnight bags? Her friend Tessa's place, a PR executive with a podcast about female empowerment. Which friends enable the lie? Tess, mainly, but also 3 other women from her book club who think affairs are complicated, rather than just plain selfish. I filed the divorce papers myself, printed them at the library. 78 pages of legal language that boiled down to, "This marriage is over, and I'm taking what's mine." On a Friday night, I came home to an empty house. Marin was at a strategy session with her consulting firm. I knew better. Her calendar, which she'd accidentally left shared on our family tablet, showed a meeting with CB at a wine bar downtown. I left the divorce papers on her pillow, perfectly centered. My wedding ring sat on top of them, no note. The silence would say everything. Then I grabbed my already packed duffel bag and left. I didn't slam the door. The airport ambush took 3 weeks of planning. Maureen and Cade were flying to Tulum for what her calendar called a strategy retreat. I pulled their flight details from a combination of sources: Cade's idiotic public Instagram story showing his boarding pass, Marin's airline rewards account that she'd forgotten I had access to, and simple pattern recognition. They always flew Delta, always booked economy comfort, always arrived at the airport exactly 90 minutes before departure because Cade was paranoid about missing flights. I arranged 2 rideshare pickups for that morning, both perfectly timed. Mine would arrive at the terminal drop-off 30 seconds before theirs. My buddy Rico, who drove for the same app, would pull up right behind them, blocking their car in. I stood on the curb at 6:47 a.m. with my phone in my hand, recording. Their black sedan pulled up at 6:48. Marin got out first, wearing oversized sunglasses like she was someone important. Cade followed, pulling a leather weekender that probably cost more than my car payment. They didn't see me until I stepped directly into their path. "Hey," I said, calm, friendly even. "Gates D12, right?" Marin froze. Her face went white under the foundation. Cade puffed up immediately, the way mediocre men do when they think they need to protect their territory. "Who the hell are you?" "I'm the guy who paid for your last 3 hotel rooms," I said. I kept my voice conversational, aware that TSA was 30 feet away. No threats, just facts. "I'm also the guy who has copies of every text message you sent my wife, including the ones about how you can't wait to taste her again." Poetic, man. Really. "Ilya, stop," Marin hissed. "Your money trail's cheaper than you think," I continued, looking directly at Cade. "Joint account. She's been draining it for 6 months. I documented everything. You want to know the funny part? She told me our daughter isn't mine. And you know what? She was right." A small crowd had gathered. People love public drama at 7 a.m. Cade took a step forward. I didn't move. I just smiled and tilted my phone slightly, making sure the camera was visible. "You touch me, that's assault," I said pleasantly. "And there are about 40 witnesses, plus TSA, so maybe think it through." Behind me, I heard the familiar voice of Tess Largo. She was coincidentally at the airport that morning. I'd tipped her off anonymously that Maureen and Cade would be traveling together. Tess loved drama almost as much as she loved her podcast. I heard her phone recording. Perfect. "This is insane," Marin said, but her voice cracked. "No," I said. Insane was thinking I wouldn't find out. Insane was saying that about our daughter. That's what we're calling insane now. I stepped back, pocketed my phone, and walked away before anyone could call security. Behind me, I heard Cade trying to salvage his dignity and Marin's panicked whisper. The video would leak eventually. Not from me directly, but these things have a way of finding their way onto the internet, especially when someone like Tess smells a story. I drove home and started Phase 2. Cade lived in a condo complex with an HOA that had more rules than the Geneva Convention. I'd pulled the bylaws online, all public record, and found several interesting restrictions. No overnight parking in guest spots, no vehicles blocking fire lanes. Quiet hours from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., strictly enforced. His Porsche was his baby. He posted about it constantly, called it his stress relief, bragged about the restored engine. He parked it in a reserved spot that he'd been assigned, except he didn't know the HOA rules had changed 3 months ago, and his spot was now designated for compact vehicles only. His sports car was 6 inches too long. I didn't touch the car. I didn't need to. I just filed a complaint with the HOA, attached photos showing the violation, and CC'd the towing company they contracted with. They towed it on a Thursday night. Cade's Instagram story the next morning was a masterpiece of impotent rage. He'd had to pay $400 to get it out of impound. The comments section was full of people asking why he didn't just follow the rules. I may have contributed a few anonymous observations, but that was just the warm-up. I'd also learned that Cade's condo had a history of car alarm issues, documented in the HOA meeting minutes from 2 years ago. A faulty electrical panel in the garage caused intermittent problems. It would take a simple call to the property manager, posing as a concerned resident, to suggest they run a diagnostic test on the alarm system. The test would require triggering every alarm in the garage between midnight and 2 a.m. Perfectly legal. Perfectly annoying. Cade posted about his insomnia for 3 days straight. Then came the garage confrontation. I knew his schedule by then. He went to the gym every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m., parked on the 3rd level where there were fewer cameras, and always took the stairs because he claimed elevators were for lazy people. I was waiting by his car when he came back, sweaty and smug. "What the hell?" he said when he saw me. "We need to talk," I said. "I've got nothing to say to you." "That's fine. I'll talk." He moved toward his car door. I stepped in front of it. Not threatening, just blocking. "Move," he said. "You like taking things that don't belong to you," I said. "My wife, my money, my time, so I thought I'd return the favor." "I don't know what Marin told you, but—" I slapped him, open-handed, across the face. Not hard enough to break anything, but loud enough to echo off the concrete walls. He staggered back, more from shock than force. His hand went to his cheek. "You insane." "Here's the thing," I said quietly. "You're a brand, right? That's what you tell people. Personal brand. Well, brands can be destroyed. I've got photos of every time you've parked illegally, video of you screaming at a valet, screenshots of your tax lien from 2019 that you settled for pennies on the dollar. All public record. All very easy to compile into a tidy little package and send to your client list." His face was red. "You're threatening me." "I'm informing you," I said. "There's a difference. See, I'm not going to hurt you. I don't need to. I'm just going to make sure everyone knows exactly who you are. Every client, every business contact. I'm going to become the most annoying, persistent, legal problem you've ever had." I stepped back and let him get in his car. He peeled out, tires squealing. I stood there and smiled. Later that week, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Cade's biggest client had dropped him. Something about reputation concerns. I had nothing to do with that directly, but I may have left a few well-timed comments on professional forums where his name came up. Funny how quickly consultants become unemployed when people stop trusting them. The paternity twist came from a hunch and 3 hours of research. I'd been assuming Cade was the father. Marin certainly implied it, but something about the timeline didn't sit right. I pulled up old Facebook photos from the reunion weekend, cross-referenced faces with names, and found someone unexpected in the background of several shots. Noah Kelton, adjunct professor of literature, married, 2 kids. Noah had been at the reunion. Noah had also been Marin's study partner in college, before Cade, before me. I ran his name through a people search database and found his address, his wife's name, his kid's school. Then I did something risky. I called him. "Is this Noah Kelton?" I asked when he answered. "Yes?" "My name is Ilya Novak. You don't know me, but I think we need to talk about Marin Ellis." The silence on the other end was deafening. "I don't know what you're—" "Charlotte reunion. 3 years ago. Hotel bar on the last night. I've got photos, Noah. Not of anything explicit, just you and her, close, talking. But your wife doesn't know you were there, does she?" "What do you want?" "I want a paternity test," I said. "Legal, proper, consensual. I'm betting the daughter Marin claims is Cade's is actually yours. And if I'm right, I want you to confirm it in writing." "Why would I do that?" "Because if you don't, I'll make sure your wife and your department head both find out you've been lying about where you were that weekend. Maybe nothing happened, maybe it did, but the appearance is enough, isn't it?" He was quiet for a long time. Then, "If I do this, you leave my family alone?" "You have my word." 2 weeks later, I had the second DNA test. Noah was the father. Marin had lied to everyone, including Cade. The daughter she'd used as a weapon against me wasn't even connected to the man she'd left me for. I didn't feel victorious. I felt exhausted. But I wasn't done. The mediation was supposed to be confidential. I'd hired a lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia, who specialized in high-conflict divorces, and requested formal mediation to attempt reconciliation. Marin agreed, probably because her own lawyer told her it looked good for custody negotiations. What Marin didn't know was that I'd also requested the session be recorded, with full disclosure to all parties, for documentation purposes. It was legal. Everyone signed the consent forms. The session was held in a bland conference room with gray carpet and fluorescent lights. Marin sat across from me with her lawyer. I had Patricia and a folder full of documents. "Let's start with assets," the mediator said. "Before we do that," I said, "I want to address the paternity issue." Marin's lawyer tensed. "That's not relevant to asset division." "It's relevant to fraud," Patricia said smoothly. "My client was led to believe he was the father of a child for 8 years. During that time, marital funds were used for the child's care. If Mrs. Novak knowingly deceived him, that affects division of assets and any potential custody claims." "I never," Marin started. "You said, and I quote, 'Stop acting like you raised her. She's not even yours,'" I said. I pulled out my phone and played the audio clip. Her voice, clear as day, captured during one of our arguments. Her face went pale. "I have the DNA test results," I continued, sliding a copy across the table. "She's not mine biologically. I also have evidence that you believed Cade Beaumont was the father, except he's not either." I pulled out the second test. "Noah Kelton, adjunct professor, married. He's confirmed it in writing." Marin's lawyer looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Marin's voice cracked. This is humiliating. Yeah, I said. It is. My clients are willing to settle, Patricia said. No alimony. Asset split based on documented contributions. Mrs. Novak keeps the house but refinances to remove Mr. Novak's name. Mr. Novak keeps his retirement accounts intact, and both parties sign an NDA regarding paternity. No, I said. Patricia looked at me, surprised. We discussed this. No NDA, I said. I want the truth on record. I want her parents to know. I want everyone who told me I was crazy to know I wasn't. Ilya, please, Marin whispered. You destroyed 8 years of my life, I said. You don't get to control the narrative now. The mediation ended with no agreement, but I had the recording, and I had something else, an invitation. Marin's friend Tess was hosting a live podcast event at a downtown rooftop venue, a charity fundraiser for women's empowerment. Marin was supposed to speak. The event was in 3 days. I decided to attend. The rooftop was packed with donors wearing expensive casual wear and holding wine glasses. Tess's podcast setup was in the center, surrounded by lights and cameras. Marin stood near the edge, rehearsing her talking points with a publicist. I walked in wearing a suit I'd bought at Goodwill and a confident smile. Nobody stopped me. When you look like you belong, people assume you do. Tess started the live recording at 7 p.m. sharp. She introduced Marin as a survivor of a difficult marriage who was reclaiming her narrative. The audience applauded. Marin smiled, that practiced perfect smile I used to believe was real. I waited until Marin started talking about emotional abuse and gaslighting. Then I stood up from my seat in the back. Excuse me, I said loudly. Tess's head snapped toward me. Sir, this is a private event. Actually, it's a public charity event, I said, walking forward, and I have something the audience might want to hear. Security started moving, but I was already at the front. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the venue's Bluetooth speaker system, something I'd tested earlier in the day when I'd posed as a tech volunteer. This is a recording from our mediation last week, I said, and pressed play. Marin's voice filled the rooftop. I never meant for him to find out, then mine. You committed fraud. You used me to raise another man's child. The DNA results were read aloud by Patricia's voice, clinical and clear. The crowd went silent. Marin lunged for my phone. I stepped back. She stumbled, caught herself, and then Cade appeared from the side. Apparently he'd been invited too. You son of a... Cade charged. We collided near the edge of the rooftop by the decorative railing. He swung wild. I ducked and shoved him back into a cocktail table. Glasses shattered. Someone screamed. Security was closing in, but I had maybe 10 seconds. I grabbed his wrist, twisted, and shoved him toward the DJ booth. He crashed into a speaker, feedback screaming through the night air. Then I pulled his car key fob from his pocket. He always kept it clipped to his belt loop, a weird flex, and tossed it over the railing into the lit pool 3 stories below. Good luck getting home, I said, sirens, flashing lights. But not for me. Someone had called the cops on the disturbance. But when they arrived, it was Cade who was standing over broken glass, shouting threats. I was already walking toward the exit, calm, hands visible. Marin's donors were filing out. Her publicist was on the phone doing damage control. Tess's podcast recording had captured everything. I walked past Marin on my way to the elevator. She was crying, mascara running. I hope it was worth it, I said. She didn't answer. The elevator doors closed. I rode down in silence, alone, and stepped out into the night. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. Client's lawyer called. They want to settle, full terms. I didn't respond. I just walked to my car, got in, and drove home to my empty apartment. It was over. I'd won. I'd destroyed them both, legally, publicly, completely, and I felt nothing. No triumph, no relief, just the hollow echo of 8 years that I'd never get back. I sat in my car in the parking lot for a long time, staring at the city lights, thinking about the man I used to be and the man I'd become. Then I turned off the engine, went inside, and closed the door.